that these individuals were intentionally encouraged to cross illegally, and we also have seen the pamphlets back that was discovered back in the 90s. They were.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
A republic, if you can keep it. A republic, ma'am, if you can keep it. Those were the words of Benjamin Franklin when he was asked what this new document was going to be, what this Constitution was going to be. And Benjamin Franklin responded to the question, republic, if you can keep it. And that is the question. That's what's on the whiteboard. We're going to be crafting this. I'm not really done with the whiteboard yet, but up on the whiteboard the rest of the week, it just says, if you can keep it. Can the country keep the republic that it has? Well, the first thing that you got to have if you are a country is you got to have laws that are predictably enforced. And that's why President Donald Trump has decided to send 5,000 troops to the border. Now, I don't know exactly how many of the troops are going to be armed. I think... you know, you would assume, I mean, at first I was like, well, of course they're all armed, right? They're troops. What do I know? Apparently, not all of them will be armed. I think officers will be armed. But essentially what's going on, President Trump says, President Trump was interviewed by Laura Ingraham last night. And the president said that they're going to basically set up a tent city in some capacity. And people who seek asylum will be kept there. So if you're going to pull the asylum card, you know, the legalese where they know exactly what to say, which immediately gets them a court date, and then they typically release them into America and they never show up for their court date. President Trump is saying, no, they're going to be staying in a tent city. They're not getting in. These people are not going to get in. They're not going to be released into the country. They think they are, but they're not. And the military going down to the border here is the only solution at this point. When you have other countries who are amassing people and organizing to try to invade your country, to try to exploit your weak immigration enforcement, and we're the United States of America with the greatest military force in the world, and we can't secure our own border, we can't enforce a simple law of we only want people to come here when you go through our process and you come through the front door. This is not hard stuff. I mean, this is basic. This is literally basic nation building. The rules of having a country. The rules of for all time. For all time since man has been trying to answer the question, how do we govern ourselves? This has been a key point, right? Right? Like literally ever since God cast Adam and Eve out of the garden, that was a border. Get out of the garden. You're now outside of the Garden of Eden. There's clearly a line, and we use geographic boundaries to delineate, to figure out, you know, which land is whose land, and then we control who comes and goes. I mean, it's a basic principle of our world, the world that we live in. And so when you have 7,000 people, and some people have said it's as high as 14,000, I don't know, and you got all these people marching, isn't the United States of America obligated to say, no? sorry, we're just not going to let you come in here. I know the United Nations is now saying the America must let these 7,000 people in. No, we don't. We've had enough. We have had enough of this. We've had enough of what we've had enough of is very simple. It's called lawlessness. We've had enough of lawlessness, and it's time to do something and predictably enforce our laws, because if you don't, what is the point of having them? Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing would be this. Hey, Hillary. How you doing, Hillary Clinton? What's going on, Hillary? It's not like we're not really yearning to hear your voice, but it's always great when you come out, and, again, double standards are fantastic for the left. Can you imagine if a conservative had said this? Listen.
That's childish.
What do you think of Cory Booker's, and you didn't comment on him, and you feel free
Oh,
to?
I adore him.
What do you think about him saying kicked him in the shins, essentially? Start to get to that kind of political.
Well, that was Eric Holder.
Yeah, Eric Holder,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know they all look alike.
No, they don't. Oh, well done. Hillary.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. They all look alike? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Cory Booker, a black senator from New Jersey. Eric Holder, a former black attorney general. I know they all look alike. Can you imagine if Donald Trump had said something like that? Can you imagine if anyone on the right would say something like that? I honestly, Megyn Kelly, which a lot of people think it's appropriate that Megyn Kelly got eaten by the very people that she was trying to please during the 2016 election, right? A lot of people think there was a great article written, I think, by Nolte over at Breitbart, who said that really and truly there's examples of your competition offering you a job just to eliminate you in the future, right? Your competition offering you a job to basically destroy you. And they're saying that's what NBC News did to Megyn Kelly, who was a superstar at Fox News. I mean, she was. Anyway, can you imagine? Megyn Kelly makes a comment about how when she was growing up, it was okay to be blackface as long as you were being respectful and you were actually playing a character, okay? And she makes that comment, and 2 days later, she is fired for it. She's fired for it. And here's Hillary. Oh, yeah. Black people all look alike. Ha, 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 ha. You listen to that crowd. Ha, 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 ha. Oh, yeah. Can you imagine? Play this again, just in case somebody may be listening to the program, like just tuning in. So go ahead and play it one more time. Listen to this.
or whatever. That's childish.
What do you think of Cory Booker's, and you didn't comment on him, and you feel free
Oh,
to?
I adore him.
What do you think about him saying kicked him in the shins, essentially? Start to get to that kind of political.
Well, that was Eric Holder.
Yeah, Eric Holder,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know they all look alike.
No, they don't. Oh, well done.
No, they don't.
Hillary.
Yeah,
Unbelievable. It's just it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. The double standards continue.
I looked up the video on YouTube because I wanted to hear what she said afterward.
Oh, okay.
And Hillary says after, I was paid by Mark Zuckerberg to say that. That's the first thing that was said. And then the host responds, oh, Hillary, you've been reading Trump's tweets beautifully.
Really? That's what she went on to say?
That's what was said. That was the exchange directly after this
Well, that's
video.
because she realized, oh, no, this is not 1991. And there's cameras everywhere. And there's Twitter. And there's Facebook. And everybody knows what I just said already. It's just unbelievable. This is why Candace Owens penned this over at Breitbart.com over the weekend. Hillary Clinton, this is a perfect storm, folks. Blexit. Candace Owens writes, when I uploaded my first video onto YouTube 1 year ago, I entitled it, Mom, Dad, I'm a Conservative. It was a 2-minute satirical stab at the social exiling that many Americans face when they announce their conservatism to friends and to family. Soon thereafter, I would discover that for black Americans, the punishment that awaits is far worse than any social exile. It's a full-court social lynching. Search the name of any prominent black conservative and peruse the words written by liberal journalists. Dr. Ben Carson is a porch monkey. Larry Elder is but an Uncle Tom. Kanye West is in the sunken place. which is a reference to Jordan Peele's film. What's that film? Oh, but it was really. I have it too. I saw it too, and it was actually about. White liberals being racist. But anyway, Clarence Thomas is a womanizer. She goes on. I've been branded a self-hating black, Nazi sympathizer, and rather astonishingly, a white supremacist. The underlying sentiments are clear. Black people are meant to think and act within the confines of what white liberals deem acceptable. But while in the past, the threat of slander has worked to lag the spreading of black conservatism over this last year, I've observed something of the opposite effect. In fact, what many have misdiagnosed as political tension between two ideological desperate groups is actually something far greater, far more deep-rooted, and much more likely to alter the trajectory of this country as we know it. Across America, Candace Owen writes, Black people are beginning to question political orthodoxy. We have been quietly building an ecosystem of free thinkers, and at long last, the intellectual dam is breaking. This unique moment will come to be known as Blexit, the black exit from the Democrat Party. For decades, the black community has been in an emotionally abusive relationship with the Democrat Party. Our fidelity to leftist politicians, coupled with our false belief that a larger government might facilitate solutions, has led to the overall collapse of our families, neighborhoods, and incidentally, our futures. Blexit is a national movement of minorities that have awakened to the truth. It is for those who have taken an objective look at our decades-long alliance or allegiance to the left and asked ourselves, what do we have to show for it? The media has betrayed our focus. They have learned the value of our untethered emotionality and have chosen to emphasize certain topics in an effort to suspend our rational thinking. This is why, in 2016, the 16 unarmed black men shot and killed by police officers took headline precedent over the approximate 330,000 black babies aborted each year. This is why the topic of illegal alien children being separated at the border earned excessive coverage, while the 70% black single motherhood rate, a tragedy encouraged by our government welfare programs, is ignored. The investment into our permanent state of outrage is opportune. It inspires a predictable outcome at the polls. Until now. Beyond anything else, Blexit is a chant of freedom. It is a chorus of voices from across the country whose hearts are exploding with the realization that we are more than the color of our skin. We are also more than a voting bloc. We are Americans first and foremost, and we will work to piece back together our broken communities, absent overreaching government structures, absent handouts, and alongside our American brothers and sisters. The tides are shifting. New leaders are emerging to help steer open minds into the uncharted possibilities of our futures. We need all of America to join us in this fight. No matter your skin color, we need you to take up metaphorical arms against the Democrat Party. First, visit the website, Blexit.com, where you will find the hard truths about the bigoted racism within the Democrat Party. Second, spread the word. Your voice matters to those who are looking to make an exit from the bondage of the Democrat Party. Finally, stand for truth. This battle will be one of the most consequential cultural wars in American history. Your support is needed to allow us to arm the next generation with the facts they need to be free. Blexit is our long overdue renaissance, and there isn't an article written from the depths of hell that can stop it. Visit Blexit.com. Let's go there now, shall we? Look at this site. I'm telling you, I've never seen anything like this. This is amazing. I tell you what's amazing about it is if you go down here and you click on truths, Joe, that's what we want to do. We want to click on the truths, and then you go here. It says inconvenient truths, all right? And just listen to the headlines of these articles. The first one is lynching, a fate for both blacks and whites. And it says 3,446 black Republicans and 1,297 white Republicans were lynched by the KKK between 1882 and 1968. The next article, President Lyndon B. Johnson, his true motivations. Quote, I'll have those N-words voting Democratic for the next 200 years, end quote. That's a quote from Democrat President Lyndon B. Johnson. Next truth. Margaret Sanger calls for black extermination. Quote, colored people are like human weeds and need to be exterminated. We have another one. The Forgotten March, Forgotten People 1.0. They march for 17 people killed at Parkland, but are silent for the nearly 500 people killed in Chicago this year. Then another one. Let's see. The Forgotten March, Forgotten People 2.0. They march for 2,000 separated illegal aliens, but are silent for the 900 black babies aborted every day. President Wilson and federal resegregation. President Woodrow Wilson, Democrat, fired most black federal employees and resegregated multiple government offices. Did you know this? Click on More Truths. And let's see here. Click on More Truths, and we have a quote from Hillary Clinton. Black kids are super predators. In 1996, Hillary Clinton broadly described black youths as super predators with no conscience or empathy. Oh, go ahead and play that clip again, Joe. What was it? What did she say? Oh, yeah, she said this.
That's childish.
What do you think of Cory Booker's, and you didn't comment on him, and you feel free?
Oh, I adore him.
What do you think about him saying kicked him in the shins, essentially? Start to get to that kind of political.
Well, that was Eric Holder.
Yeah, Eric Holder,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know they all look alike.
No, they don't.
That goes hand in hand with what she said in 1996. Then you have a quote here from President Harry Truman, a Democrat. N-words ought to be in Africa. Then you have President Barack Obama or Barack the barista. A few years ago, Barack Obama would have been getting us coffee, is what President Bill Clinton said of President Obama, because he's black. Talks about the KKK's real origin. The Democrat Party created the Ku Klux Klan after the Confederacy's defeat in the Civil War. Then you get Jim Crow, a child of Democrats. Jim Crow segregation laws in the South were created and maintained by the Democrat Party. And then you have this one. Quote, an N-word could not be an American citizen. Democrats supported the Dred Scott Supreme Court decision that determined descendants of slaves could not be citizens. Anyway, the truths go on this website. It's extremely well done, right? But here's the thing. A lot of people, Kanye West is now making a clothing line with Blexit on it, Blexit.com. This is, there's a lot of, I think there's going to be a lot of black Americans that go to this website and are going to be educated for the first time on the history of the Democrat Party. And they're going to be like, wait, I was taught that at some point Republicans and Democrats came together in the 60s and just decided to switch issues and take each other's issues for themselves. No, that's not true at all. We got to take a break. Back in a moment.
Very basic, almost like comic strip pamphlets telling their citizens on how to get to the border, hire a coyote, what to wear, what to do, what to say with an agent finds you, and where to go to get help here in the United States. So.
And they also give them scripts, say this particular legal phrase, and now you'll be admitted into the country, and you'll have a court date.
The credible fear.
Yeah. We're talking with Maria Espinoza. Check out her stuff. It's the remembranceproject.org. It's an organization founded to remember those who have been murdered by illegal aliens. Like preventable deaths is the key there. If we would secure our border, have a immigration policy that actually works. Speaking of securing the border, Maria, I would like to know what you think about President Donald Trump's statement. He says, listen, these people are not getting in. He's come out and been pretty forceful at this point. He knows they're coming. And he's threatening to put the military, not reserves, but the military on the southern border. What are your thoughts on that?
We asked him to do just that last month.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, we got a great show for you. Coming up at the bottom of this hour, we'll be talking with State Representative Aaron Pilkington about his race, the importance of the midterms. Then at 7:05, we'll be talking with UALR economist Dr. Michael Packo about the state of Arkansas's economy. And I've got some other questions, too, just about, what's going on nationally, too. How does he see things? Then the bottom of the next hour, 7:33, we'll be talking with candidate for state representative in the River Valley area, Mr. Joe Cloud. Will be with us. Dr. Joe Cloud will be with us. Thank you. Yeah, and that's Dr. Michael Packo as well will be with us. And Dr. Joe Cloud is running as Republican candidate District 71. So got a jam-packed show for you, but we're also got a lot of stuff to get to. Hey, let's listen to CNN try to get the Israeli ambassador to trash Donald Trump. Did you hear about this one? Listen.
You introduced politics here. Let's get you to weigh in on the conversation that's been happening since this happened yesterday about the president and responsibility. Now, the only person responsible for what happened here is the man who pulled the trigger, right?
That's right.
He's the person who's responsible for the deaths. But to what degree do you believe, as some of the president's critics have said, that he's responsible for the environment that would have fed some of what we're seeing, this growth in anti-Semitism, based on some of his rhetoric?
I have to tell you, Victor, I've been following anti-Semitism all of my adult life. I have never heard a stronger statement than the statement the President of the United States made yesterday. He said at his rally in Illinois that if you are going to try to destroy the Jewish people, we're going to destroy you. I've never heard a non-Israeli figure anywhere, not a European leader, not an American president, ever say such a strong statement condemning anti-Semitism. And I think one of the reasons why is that anti-Semitism hits the president close to home. His whole his family, his daughter and his son-in-law, his grandchildren are Jewish. And I think it hits him very hard. And I was very glad to see how forcefully he pushed back against that yesterday. And I know that he's not alone. You have people on both sides of the political aisle. I met with Senator Casey. I met with congressmen who are both Democrats and Republicans from this area. And I know you're very divided in your political debate here in the United States, almost anything. And I know you're about a week or 10 days before an election. It was nice to see people from across the aisle unite in pushing back against this heinous crime and the hatred that inspired it.
Okay, so the bigger question is, what stops it? What changes the trend?
Well, I think one thing you can do, and you have obviously different.
Okay, so then you've got CNN. They're trying to get somebody to say something negative about Trump. It doesn't stop there. They also talk to the rabbi of the Tree of Life Synagogue and Allison Camerata. Can you believe this woman used to be on Fox News? I just can't believe it. Listen to what she was trying to get this rabbi to do to President Trump. Listen.
Do you blame anyone for what happened there at the Tree of Life beyond the gunman?
Gotcha. I don't really foist blame upon any person. Hate does not know religion, race, creed, political party. It's not a political issue in any way, shape, or form. Hate does not know any of those things. It exists in all people.
But can hate be cultivated? What we're struggling with today is maybe hate's in all people, maybe it's dormant. What lights the match of hate?
Donald Trump. Say it. Say Donald Trump.
I think you're raising one of those great questions that people far smarter than I can answer. But I do recall this. If we look in the Bible after the story of the flood and Noah,
don't quote the Bible.
God regretfully says to Noah, I have learned that man from his youth is prone to evil, which is, you would think, a horrific thing for God to tell us. The message I get from that is, yes, there is the possibility of hate in all people, but there's also the possibility of good. And good will always win out over hate if we let it in each of us. And I have seen so much good these past 2 days, the emails, the texts. When I went home last night, I think I finally cleared out from my phone all my emails. I woke up this morning, I had 399 emails. These are strangers, people I've never met from around the world. Jew, Christian, Muslim, Sikh, every religion. People just pouring out their hearts and giving support. And it shows me good will always win out over evil.
All right, so and she went on to ask him, is the President of the United States welcome? Is Trump welcome at your synagogue when he comes to visit? He says absolutely. He's my president. All these people standing up. Did that go how CNN thought it was going to go? The guy ended up quoting scripture and talking about a little theology there. Back in a minute.
So he has been very patient. He has warned them, but if we don't enforce our laws, Paul, we have no country. We have no constitution. And number one priority is for our leader is to protect our country and its citizens. And that's what he's doing. And whether you are a Democrat, Republican, Independent, you have to side with safety here in the United States. And the Remembrance Project is the only organization in the country, and it's probably the world, that we're seeing, because people from other countries are reaching out to us wanting the Remembrance Project and the Stolen Lives Quilt to go into their countries as well, because they're having the same types of problems, especially in the UK, with illegal aliens there. But yes, I encourage President Donald Trump to place the troops in the border, double the ICE agents and the immigration, the Border Patrol. But we also are asking all of your listeners there, Paul, to please recognize the National Remembrance Day for Americans killed by illegal aliens. This day we've recognized this day for 7 years now, and it is the first Sunday of each November. So come November 4th, we are going to have another event here in Washington, D.C., in Lafayette Park, near the White House, to remember and honor our fellow fallen Americans, because they are permanently separated from their loved ones, and they should still be here if only our laws were enforced and politicians placed American lives first.
That's exactly right, putting American lives first. So you said this. You said this earlier, that you have these leaders from these countries. They met with Vice President Pence, and then about maybe not getting as much U.S. money, and then they send this this force. And so I got this text right after you said that. And somebody has a question. Are we paying Honduras not to invade the United States? Or if we stop paying them our taxpayer dollars, they send an invasion force? I mean, think about that. What other response would any leader have but to then send troops to the border?
Exactly. And again, President Trump has tweeted that no more money will be given to Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, if they do not stop and come pick up their people and return them to their countries. That's exactly what's going on. And you were talking earlier in your show on the left. This is not a matter, an issue about politics, Paul. We're so far beyond that. If we don't stop and think about what we're doing here and place American first and do what's best, just like President Donald Trump is doing. He has the best interest of America in mind. And, understand that the entire Democrat Party will...
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, hey, welcome, folks. I'm telling you, it's crazy. The news cycle right now is absolutely nuts. It's crazy. If you're in my line of work, you've got plenty to talk about. Here to talk a little bit more with us this morning, we've got State Representative Aaron Pilkington on the line. Aaron, thanks for coming back on the show, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Paul. I appreciate it.
Yes, go ahead and remind our audience listening across the state, you're in House District 69, so what geographically, what are we talking about?
Sure. So House District 69 is all of Johnson County, and it's a little bit of Pope County as well. So the London part of Pope County is in my district.
Well, let me start out and ask you this. How do your constituents in Pope County feel about the rest of the state being able to vote whether or not a casino goes into Pope County?
So I will tell you this, they are not happy about it. When I'm out knocking doors, that's like the number one issue that gets brought up, and I would say overwhelming majority is very much against it.
Wow. Well, Are there any plans? I mean, because I got to tell you, Aaron, I think this thing's going to pass. And there's been some people posting on Facebook say that, hey, look, I talked to somebody and they're not for casinos, but they voted for it because it's not going in their backyard. So what are there any plans to try to fight this? I mean, I think the people of Pope County should have some recourse and to be able to resist this.
Oh, yeah, I agree 100%. And from my understanding that the county judge and the mayor are able to block it if that's correct, because they have to sign off on it. So that's why, I mean, it just shows your local elections are even more important now than they've ever been before, because, I mean, that's someone who's going to determine what's going on in Pope County. So, you know, that's why it's, you know, important to really listen to your candidate to know who's against it and who's, you know, if you're against it, because that could be the, you know, your last best hope is making sure that you've got a public official there who's going to stand up for you and what's best for Pope County. Yeah.
We're talking with State Representative Aaron Pilkington. Aaron, I guess the last election cycle, you were running against an incumbent, and now you are an incumbent, and you were able to successfully, the Republican Party, you were able to successfully turn your district red, and I know you want to keep it that way. So, you know, talk a little bit about the importance of these midterm elections, not only locally, but what's going on, what do we see nationally?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, they're so important, and the reason why is because, you know, you're determining the legislator in Arkansas as well as federally, and, you know, they're the ones who create laws and create budgets, and so, you know, creating real government change, you know, starts with the pocketbook. And so, you know, making sure that we have good conservatives in office who are going to make sure that we're, you know, fiscally conservative is what we need to do, and you can't take the eye off the ball right now and let a bunch of people get into office who are just going to go on a spending spree. And to be honest, that's what, you know, a lot of these liberal Democrats are saying around the country and around even Arkansas. You know, they're going around saying they want to spend money on this, spend money on that, and then you go, well, hold up. I mean, how are you going to pay for this? You know, some of them are honest and say, well, we need to raise taxes. Some of them aren't honest. You know, they'll beat around the bush, but it's really important that people pay attention and know what's going to happen if they let some of these people into office, because it's not going to be anything good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been telling people, because I think as far as our federal delegation goes here in Arkansas, now we shouldn't take anything for granted, and voter turnout is really high, but I've been telling Arkansans just, hey, you need to call your relatives if they're going to vote Republican, and if there are these other states, you know, you need to just call everybody, make sure everybody gets to the polls. You know, we got plenty of time. And what's crazy is if you look at some of those numbers across the country, normally, you know, the Democrats, they turn out in the early vote, and a lot of times historically that's where Republicans are really hurting. That's it. A lot of times people have told me, they've been like, hey, early vote is when the other side has a lot of time to cheat and you know, voter fraud and everything else. But right now, you look at some of these states, and Republicans are outpacing the Democrats in early voting, and it's really, I think, making the Democrats pretty nervous right now.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I was actually reading something the other day, and in Florida, the Democrats, I think, in early voting had, you know, I think a 90,000 vote advantage, and that was in 2016. And this year, the Republicans have I think a 45,000 voter advantage. So, you know, 2016 was a year that state win for Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton. So that was the year they lost, and they had that big advantage going to early voting. So yes. I'm sure they're sweating bullets over there right now.
Yeah.
But still, you're right. I mean, it's important to go vote. I mean, you can't feel overly confident and go, oh, it sounds good. The early numbers are good for the Republicans. I don't need to go vote. I mean, you still got to go vote. And, you know, if we're able to win and win big in a lot of areas, I mean, it shows everyone this is the direction that the American people want the country to go. And, you know, elections matter, and people listen to elections. And, you know, we're going to show the country, really, you know, this is the direction that we as the majority of Americans want to go. And so that's why it's so important to go out and be heard, because the louder we can be with a bigger victory, the more people are going to listen and go, okay, that's the direction the American people want.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And, you know, again, we're talking with State Representative Aaron Pilkington. You mentioned as you go, you know, door to door, you're talking with constituents, you're asking for their vote, that the casino measure, number one thing on their mind, and that's understandable because it affects them specifically. Are there any other issues that they're really, really passionate about right now?
Well, Paul, I'll tell you one thing they're really passionate about is robocalls. it's probably the one thing that they're annoyed about with the most when I can talk to constituents. But that's unfortunately that's something that needs to be done with through the AG's office or federally.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, it's the same issues I heard 2 years ago. I mean, they want Arkansas to be a better place for business to happen. They're tired of us being ranked last in all these categories. They look over, they see the growth that's going on in Tennessee and the growth that's going on in Texas, and they go, why isn't that not us? And when I tell them, I think we need to do more to make sure that we're spending less as state government and do more to lower the tax burden on our citizens so that we can compete with states like that. That really resonates with a lot of people because, they know it's either catch up or get left behind. And I think Arkansans are tired of feeling like they've been left behind. I think for a long time they felt like there's nothing they can do. And, getting the economy's growing here in Arkansas, and I think a lot of people go, okay, let's build on our success. Let's not rest on our laurels. And so that's something I think they're just, a lot of people are still, hey, we realize there's a lot more work needing to be done, and they want to see it happen.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think there is a lot more work to be done. And that actually kind of brings us back to the casino issue, in my opinion, Aaron. Do you think that I know they're going to say, well, the casinos will bring in more revenue to the government, but will that be good for the people? I mean, there's a lot of people that, gambling ruins their lives in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I think, too, there's, the amount of tax that's going to be brought in is something I think that's very attractive for people who want to vote for it. But, I think, too, you have to look at, where are the additional costs of the community that are going to be incurred by something like this going in. And, that's something a lot of times people don't think about. And so I think it's really important for people to go and look at the facts and, read articles saying, about what happened to communities when casinos came in. You can talk to people in Hot Springs, and some of them may say, what, I love having the casino there. You could talk to people who live in, Tunica and say, I hate the casino here. So, I mean, people really need to do their research and also to understand that there's a lot of societal costs that come in when you do things like this, and realize, just because you may be getting, I think $6 million in tax revenue to your city, what is the cost going to be? And, having to have more police now and, property values and things like that. I mean, those are important things to consider. And so really people need to make sure that they educate themselves on this issue, because it's one of those things where I feel like, a lot of people, like you kind of said, it's a number 4 ballot issue. It's, there's a lot of things going on, and so they're kind of hearing about it kind of late in the game, and so it's important to get informed as much as possible.
State Representative Aaron Pilkington, I wish you the best of luck in your re-election, Republican Aaron Pilkington, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts with us this morning.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Paul, for having me on anytime.
All righty. Be safe, sir. Folks, that issue, the casino issue he was just talking about, is issue number 4 on your ballot, issue number 4. So if you want casinos, there. If you want to vote against it, it's issue 4. And, I mean, I'm just telling you right now, I would not want, say I live in northeast Arkansas, I would not want someone in Pope County to be able to vote to put a casino in northeast Arkansas, and there's actually going to be one coming here. I mean, they're going to put one in West Memphis. They're going to put one in West Memphis or a full casino. I mean, there's already Southland, and Southland is already in West Memphis, but they're going to expand it. And here's the thing. I mean, I don't think that this. I think this is a sovereignty issue. He mentioned the societal costs. It's something that we definitely need to be aware of. We don't need to just flippantly vote for this because it's not going to go in our backyard. I don't think that's considerate. That's certainly not treating your neighbor the way you would like to be treated. And so maybe we should try to vote, for or against this thing with that in mind at the very least. And then maybe, of course, there's, some card sharks out there, and you guys just really want to play cards. I get it. I mean, it's on the ballot. Vote for it, vote against it. I think there's some people in state don't be caught counting cards. That's right. Or the security from the Elizabeth Warren Heritage Casino will come, and they will arrest you. I don't know. All right, so we're going to take a break, actually. We're going to reset here, going to come back, going to listen to some more Hillary Clinton saying racist things. Back in a moment.
If you believe the Second Amendment protects your right to defend your home with a firearm, where do you turn if the government confiscates your gun? To the courthouse. The Founding Fathers created your Seventh Amendment right to a civil jury to protect your freedoms. The courthouse is where you fight the overreaching hand of government. And the Brad Hendricks Law Firm is where the fight starts. Call the Brad Hendricks Law Firm at 501-221-0444. The Brad Hendricks Law Firm in Little Rock, standing ready using the Seventh Amendment to protect your Second Amendment rights.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Resist him no matter what he says. Many of the Republicans will so as well, but I can't tell people how to vote or who to vote for, but you certainly can vote for those individuals who will emulate and work with President Donald Trump, and that is placing our security, our national security, and the safety and the economic success of this country first and foremost. If America goes down, Paul, we have nowhere to go. We are the beacon of freedom. So this is what's at stake here. This is much more than politics. This is about a survival of America.
Yeah, it's echoing President Ronald Reagan. So they're in Mexico now, this caravan. We're 14 days until November 6th. Early voting starts today, in Arkansas and I think across the country as well. When are they going to get there? And I guess I'm like, how many days out of the election are they going to be there?
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right. Welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us on this Tuesday. Wow, I'm telling you, folks, I've never seen so much news as we have right now going on in the world today. Of course,
or whatever.
I guess what is it? What would you call it? The goal or the process of trying to make Trump responsible for all things evil in the world is still underway. In the meantime, Hillary Clinton is saying things like this. Joe, go ahead one more time for us. Let's hear Hillary Clinton, what she said yesterday.
That's childish.
What do you think of Cory Booker's? And you didn't comment on him, and you feel free.
Oh, I adore him.
What do you think about him saying kicked him in the shins, essentially? Start to get to that kind of political.
Well, that was Eric Holder.
Yeah, Eric Holder. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know they all look alike.
No, they don't. Oh, well done. You know, Hillary, yeah, I...
There we go. So, yeah, they all look alike. To be clear, Hillary Clinton said, a Democrat said, black people all look alike. Now, she was joking, but we're not supposed to joke. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure there's a movement among millennials right now that if you like a rap song and it uses the N-word, even when you're by yourself, even when you're driving down in the car, white people are now claiming, well, I love this song, but when it says N-word and I'm singing along to the rap lyrics, I don't say the N-word because I'm not supposed to. It's because it's wrong for me to say it when I'm singing the lyrics to a song. I don't say it. I don't want to appropriate that word. I mean, that's how legalistic, and that is the word you would have to use in this context. It is really and truly, the left is effectively and has set up a system of do's and don'ts, rules and regulations, a religious dogma, if you will, of the way to conduct yourself in society. Now, they've pushed away the traditional moral compass. Now, they will contradict themselves almost daily. Almost daily, they will contradict themselves and then bend over backwards to ignore it. That's how the liberal media and CNN and everybody else is going to ignore what Hillary Clinton said yesterday, which was made a joke that all black people look alike. If Donald Trump had said this, they would talk about it for the next 30 days. If Mike Pence had made a joke, well, that's because they all look alike, they would be talking about this wall to wall. It would be on, Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough. They'd be talking about this right now. Oh, Joe Scarborough, I can't believe I was ever a part of the Republican Party. Yeah. That's what would be going on right now. Just so you know. Let's see what else. Also, okay, to revisit this, we now have troops going to the border. And this is effectively going to send the left into a tailspin as well. The troops at the border that are on their way, 5,000 of them, are essentially going to be used, from what we know, based on the Laura Ingraham interview with President Trump the other day. They're going to be used for to manage, and they're going to put these asylum seekers, the ones that know exactly what to say to get their court date, because that's what happens. They're going to put them in a tent. They're not going to release them into the country. These 7,000 immigrants, Donald Trump is not going to allow them to get in. In the meantime, you've got the cast of The Big Bang Theory on one of their episodes. The Big Bang Theory, which is, all science, right? Supposedly, it's all science. It's not, it's anti-God. Well, the cast of The Big Bang Theory decided to pray, to ask for God's help with the election against a fascist, hate-filled, fear-mongering ruler. Huh. Telegraph much? Then we had two ministers, Methodist ministers, one Methodist and one Baptist. Yeah, a Methodist and a Baptist walk into a speech being given by Jeff Sessions. A Methodist and a Baptist walk into a speech being given by Jeff Sessions, and they interrupt him. Sessions was speaking to the Boston Lawyers chapter of the Federalist Society when a man wearing a minister's outfit began reciting the scripture from the book of Matthew. Quote, I was hungry, and you didn't feed me. I was thirsty, and you didn't give me a drink. I was a stranger, and you didn't invite me into your home. Stop. Why are leftists all of a sudden acting like there's room for God in their ideology? I would love to know this. See, it's only convenient, right? Like what the Bible says about feeding the poor and the hungry, we're 100% behind that message. But what the Bible says about other things, no, that's regressive. That's regressive. We're an evolved society. No. You want to take one, but you don't want to take the other. Again, double standards. When you do not care for others, you are wounding the body of Christ, the minister said. saying, Brother Jeff, as a fellow United Methodist, I call upon you to repent, to care for those in need. Talking about the border, talking about the caravan is what this guy was saying. Listen, you're not going to take care of these 7,000 people. Sessions said this. Good for him. He said, quote, well, thank you for those remarks and attacks, but I would just tell you, we do our best every day to fulfill my responsibility to enforce the laws of the United States. Sessions was then interrupted again by another minister, claiming to be a Baptist. I'm a pastor of a Baptist church, and you are escorting me out for exercising my religious liberty, as the man was being removed. After the hecklers were removed, Sessions said, the moment demonstrating the heckler's veto, in which the ability of one individual to prevent others in a public forum to be able to express, hopefully, a coherent thought on the subject. Sessions responded to protesters, quote, I don't believe there's anything in my theology that says a secular nation state cannot have lawful laws to control immigration. It is not immoral, not indecent, and not unkind to state what your laws are and then set about to enforce them. That's very well said by Jeff Sessions. So, we're all going to go vote. Early voting is underway right now, by the way. Call your friends, call your family, make sure they go vote, especially if you live, all over the state. I probably shouldn't say especially if you live in the Little Rock area, in the District 2 area, but I do feel compelled to do that because there just are more Democrats in that area than there are in other districts. And you've got French Hill, the incumbent Republican, versus the Democrat Clark Tucker, right? Who, by the way, Democrat Clark Tucker was recently there's a video that came up. I was on Twitter, I saw it, where Clark Tucker, the Democrat, there's a video of him in D.C. at some swanky fundraiser, hobnobbing around cocktail party. And he called himself a cheap date to these DNC, Democrat Party people. He said, I'm a real cheap date, meaning give me money because it doesn't cost as much to air TV ads in the Little Rock market and the Arkansas market as it does in other bigger, major markets. He called himself a cheap date. I just that's interesting. You got to be honest, I guess. If you got to get that money, somehow. And he's trying to get that DNC money, trying to get that Democrat Party money by saying, I'm a cheap date. Thought that was very interesting of Clark Tucker. But, par for the course, I guess. Let's see here. What else do we have? Oh, did you see this? Hang on a second. I have another one here. Not only do you have the ministers, not only do you have the Big Bang people, you have, let's talk about, really, we have not talked about this on the show. We're about to run out of time. Let's talk about real quick what's going on in Texas. Our friends to the south, let's talk about that for a minute. Ted Cruz, who is Hispanic, and then you have this guy named Robert Francis, whose name who is Irish. His name is Robert Francis O'Rourke, and Yeah, Joe, this is news to you. We haven't covered this. The guy's name is Beto, and actually you're not supposed to pronounce it Beto. You're supposed to pronounce it Beto. You got to make sure you put the T in there. Beto. You see, he says he's grew up in this Hispanic community, and so his name is Beto, meaning he's a Hispanic and yet he's Irish. His last name is O'Rourke, right? And so running as Francis or Robert O'Rourke doesn't really have a Hispanic thread to it. Doesn't have a ring to it. It doesn't even read. But because his name is Robert, and apparently if your name is Robert, a nickname for Robert in Hispanic communities is Beto. They just call you because Roberto. You just go to Beto. So the guy's name is Beto O'Rourke, right? It's the Democrat formula, right? You have Barry Obama. No. We're not going to call you Barry. Barry? No. We're going to call you Barack, because Barack is a much cooler sounding name. I'm telling you, folks, the Democrat Party has no shame here. You have Hispanic as somebody who is actually Hispanic, who's Cuban descent, Ted Cruz, and running in Texas as a Republican, and the Democrat Party. I'm telling you, man, the Democrat Party just sees people based on what group they want to put you in. And that's why, bringing us back to our first segment, Blexit, Candace Owens, Kanye West. Go to Blexit.com. That's BLEXIT.com and check out the truths up there. It's amazing. And this is happening when Hillary Clinton yesterday made a joke that all black people look alike. Cultural appropriation, yeah, Joe. I hear what you're saying. We got one more hour coming your way next.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
They're going to be at the border. If President Trump then sends the military and activates them, CNN, everybody, we're going to have cameras there, and there's going to be this very tense atmosphere, I would imagine.
Right.
And what is that? I mean, can you imagine the powder keg that could potentially be?
Well, I think the American people are fed up. Let's look at on the flip side. If you don't have compassion for American children, we have a whole banners full of our Stolen West Quilt banners with American children killed. We have so many families that I can sit here and list, and we can sit here and talk about for hours the stories. And just last night I spoke to another family. This is an everyday thing for us where we're trying to keep up with the carnage, Paul, and we simply cannot. We have wonderful youth who are being killed by illegal aliens. We're bringing in more supposedly UACs, unaccompanied minors. Here, unaccompanied children. I guess they changed that word to make it a little more heart-tugging, but who are here sitting next to our children in schools. These other kids came from chaos, and this is what they're bringing in the culture, and they're recruiting gang members, and that's why the uptick in the MS-13 gang membership and the violence. They're thumbing their noses to our laws and to its citizens. But you're right. What the media wants is that climax there at the border and the cameras. You bet they're going to be at the border with those cameras, every single news station, where they never came into the press conference room when President Trump was meeting with our families. They panned away. Yes. So this is the fake news has been exposed. These countries exposed for taking advantage of the generous American taxpayer. We have 500,000 American orphan children who need good homes and a better life. We have 13 million children who live in poverty and probably go to bed hungry. Let's clean our house and making sure that we're taking care of our children first before we start looking at the fake news and their cameras where they put women and children at the front. Pregnant women coming on this whole trek is completely ridiculous.
Yes. Yeah.
No woman who cared for their child would put themselves in that situation. Plus, you have parents sending their young daughters on birth control to cross the border with a coyote, knowing that they're going to be raped. What kind of people, what kind of character are these people coming from? Who are they? We don't need any more crime, Paul. We need to stop importing crime. We've got plenty of problems in Chicago and Detroit. Then why are we welcoming this chaotic group of people?
I completely agree. And, that's the whole point of having a sovereign nation is being able to decide who gets to come and who doesn't get to come. And so that's a really good points that you're making. The left has been – oh, go ahead.
Our baseline, Paul, is that we do not have to allow anyone into our country, and that's what every American citizen has to think about. Our baseline is simply that. We don't have to allow anyone into our country. It's better, in my opinion, to be able to teach other countries to fish and how to take care and be able to, for their citizens, to force the kind of government that they're fleeing to, not to bring their problems here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're very generous and we can help them there, and that's what we're doing. That's what President Trump is using this U.S. foreign aid to, as a way to try to make those countries be good leaders and, be good parents.
The left has been using this phrase for the last 18 months. And the phrase is this: influence the outcome of an election. I look at these seven, and this is an actual attempt to do that. This 7,000 caravan, that's what it actually looks like. This is an attempt to influence the outcome of an election. But don't expect any analysis like that from the mainstream media. They're going to sit on their moral high horse, and they're going to claim that Donald Trump is heartless and is a totalitarian for securing the border, because he's at the point now, unless these people are stopped, he's not going to back down. I mean, he's shown that multiple times. I saw somebody, even suggest that, hey, maybe you shut down, not only use the military to secure the border, but you also just shut down the legal crossing. Just absolutely shut it down, say nobody in, nobody out for a period of time, which we did do in 1985 after one of our federal agents was killed at the border.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, folks. It's hour number 2. Thank you so much for being with us. We are days away from the midterm elections, and I know everybody out there is calling your friends, telling them that they need to vote, especially if they live in other states. I have not voted yet, Joe. No, I have not, but I do plan on it. Folks, this is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We are building a liberty machine. We're so glad that you're with us this morning. I want to welcome to the program. On the line, we've got Dr. Michael Packo, who is an economist, state economic forecaster for the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. Dr. Packo, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Oh, good morning. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. I saw some of these unemployment numbers for the state and for the country, and I just wanted to get your response to that. Just kind of talk a little bit about the state jobless rate. It's hit this record low of 3.5%. What does that tell you?
3.5% is the lowest that's ever been recorded since these statistics were put together in the 1970s. So what it tells us is that of the people who are either looking for a job or have a job, the number looking for a job is very low. But as a ratio like that, it's not necessarily the best indicator of either the economy or even of labor market conditions for that matter.
So, so talk a little bit about that, because are you saying that the number of 3.5% record low unemployment, it might sound great, but it might be just a little bit misleading as to the health of the overall economy?
That's exactly what I'm saying. And the reason is that the number of people who are even participating in the labor force has fallen dramatically, since the last recession, but even more recently here in Arkansas around 2012. The labor force participation rate, the number of people that are either actively looking for jobs or have a job, declined by, about 4 percentage points nationwide from the time just before the Great Recession till recently. Meanwhile, Arkansas's participation rate has fallen by almost 6 percentage points. So that's 2 to 3 percentage points more than the U.S., and that's as a fraction of the population. Those are people who have simply dropped out of the labor force, have disappeared, aren't even looking for a job anymore. And if we consider those people to be, to some extent, unemployed, then the measured unemployment rate would be quite a bit higher than the 3.5% that we're seeing today.
Okay, so you mentioned that our labor force participation rate in Arkansas is lower than the average across the country. Is that true, too?
Yes, that's right. It's one of the lowest in the country, and it's fallen by more than almost any other state in the country. That is, it's getting worse in the sense that fewer Arkansans are looking for a job or employed.
Well, this may be, I mean, I know this may be, speculative, but do you know why that is? Why in your opinion, would Arkansas be different than these other states?
Well, that's a really good question. Some of the other states that have had similar experiences are in some ways share the same characteristics as Arkansas, relatively low-income states. When I look at the breakdown by age group, nearly every age group experienced the decline during the 2012, 2013 period. But the big gap that opened up and hasn't closed at all is in 55 to 64-year-olds. So people who are approaching the end of their working careers, if you take the 65-year-old traditional retirement age, have dropped out of the labor force, and it doesn't look like they're coming back, having taken early retirement, disability, perhaps something like that. There's also a big decline in young people no longer working or participating in the labor force. That's probably attributable to more going back to school or staying in school, or maybe more intensive school studies, less time for a part-time job. And then early middle age, 35 to 45, we're again seeing a decline where we've seen some recovery, but a lot of people have dropped out of the labor force from that age group, and that's kind of mysterious as well. I guess when you look across the board, it could be things like the decline of manufacturing jobs. People are choosing to not work or retire. There's some speculation that the opioid epidemic is keeping some people out of the workforce.
Interesting.
But that's all speculative, really.
Yeah.
There aren't really any hard and fast reasons, other than the fact that baby boomers are retiring. So a little bit of decline in that participation rate is natural and to be expected.
Are you concerned at all with Arkansas? I mean, I've been saying we've got a skilled labor, shortage here in the state. I mean, if you talk to some of these businesses, they really have jobs that they need filled. But in Arkansas, we tend to have a skilled labor. I've called it a crisis before, but feel free to respond to that.
Well, there is a mismatch, and the things I hear traveling around the state, talking to employers, Chamber of Commerce people, is it's particularly acute in the skilled trades, jobs that don't necessarily require a bachelor's degree, but require some training, expertise, and skills. Truck driving has been one for a long time that's been lacking workers. Welding, there's some other areas like that. But I guess the good news is that we are seeing this increase in the number of young people that are staying in education longer, so getting those skills. And so I think we're on our way to meeting that, but it is an area for improvement, that's for sure.
We're talking with Dr. Michael Packo, economist at UALR. I've got this headline in front of me. Okay, we've just talked about this. State jobless rate hits a record low. We talked about how the labor force participation rate, though, is also low, and that's not a good thing. But then I've got another headline here with the same number, 3.5%, but it's about the GDP overall in the nation's economy. Headline economic growth still sturdy at 3.5%. So what's your take on the GDP gains that the nation has seen so far?
It seems to be driven primarily by consumer spending, confidence among consumers, and a little bit of extra cash in their wallets from the recent tax cuts at the federal level. So there's also a little bit of inventory rebuilding that went on in the third quarter. But nevertheless, we're seeing a phase of pretty strong growth nationwide. The data aren't really available for Arkansas yet. The latest information we have on GDP for the state is that we experienced zero growth in the first quarter of the year. We won't find out how the second quarter turned out for another couple weeks here. And that number might be revised upward. But that's one of the areas, if you're looking at the overall production of goods and services in the Arkansas economy, where we're lagging behind the nation quite a bit.
So we're lagging behind in gross domestic product and GDP. Yeah, well, you know, and we would hope that would obviously pick up. You know, I mean, I think Arkansans, just from what I can tell, that we're appreciative of the more money in our pockets. You know, the Trump tax cuts and everything else. But yeah, I mean, we want to grow economically. Now, for me, Dr. Packo, one of the reasons I want to see the states the state grow economically, you know, in the private sector, is because I'm a limited government guy. And if we can hold government essentially at the same size, and then the economy grows, technically government has gotten smaller, you know, and I think that would be a good thing.
Well, yes, I would tend to agree with you. The private sector is where the value is added to the economy, particularly in terms of the things that we export, manufactured goods, agricultural products, things like that. Then that all ripples through the economy with higher incomes and spending.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this, and this may be, you know, a little controversial. I think what the president is doing with China is, you know, long overdue. And, you know, I know there are different opinions on that, but how's that? How do you see that? I mean, hurting our farmers. I mean, a lot of farmers are saying, you know, we're happy that the federal government is now putting some kind of program in place, you know, to kind of subsidize what the losses could be, you know, with soybeans and that sort of thing. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, as an economist, I'm thoroughly trained in the value of free trade, and it concerns me whenever there's hints of a trade war, imposition of tariffs either by us or our trading partners. It's just a step in the wrong direction. People are made better off when they're able to trade freely. Now, some of the things that are going on might be strategic in nature, and if they pass, that's fine. But, you know, it does concern me, and it should concern Arkansans, because we do have a robust export market, particularly for our agricultural goods. And, you know, to some extent it seems one of those crazy kind of government plans that, okay, we're going to tax incoming goods, start a trade war that'll hurt our farmers, then we need to subsidize the farmers for the pain they're experiencing, and that's certainly not a good situation. Certainly not if it persists. If it's temporary, okay, well, we'll get through it. But
and I think that's what a lot of people are hoping, that this is temporary. You know, when you do have the export, I think it's like $40 billion. I think $80 billion industry, but half of that I think is the export side of the soybeans, and then you got that now. And this is the number that they throw out. Well, you don't really see it printed next to each other very much, but the $600 billion of intellectual property theft by China against the United States. And so, you know, what I would just say is there's a ton of information. As somebody who follows the news, there's a ton of information that's now being brought to light that I wasn't even aware of about, you know, the intricacies of global trade. And I know trade is complicated, and I know trade is tough. But I'm like you, Dr. Packow. I hope it is temporary, and, you know, so obviously the farmers get some relief eventually.
Well, yes, and when it really comes right down to it, trade is about being able to buy the goods and services we desire at the lowest possible cost. Countries engage in trade to produce the goods that they're good at producing, and exchange them for things that they want. And so it's really all about consumption, not production. And so often these trade negotiations are cast in terms of creating jobs and creating export markets, when really it should be the other way around. How can we get cheap goods for American consumers?
Dr. Michael Packow, I appreciate you coming on the program so much. Very enlightening, great information, great analysis, and I hope you have a great day.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me on.
All righty. Folks, we're going to take a break. That's Dr. Michael Packow, an economist with the UALR. You see him quoted in this recent story here from last week about the state jobless rate hitting a record low of 3.5%. But then if you read, kind of dig between the lines there, you find out about our labor participation rate, or labor force participation rate. Really good information to kind of see, you know, where we really are economically, where we need to get, where we need to go. I think is really the positive to take from here, is that, hey, at least we know the facts, we have them now. We can try to improve upon our circumstances and our conditions. Folks, we're going to take a break. This is Conduit News Radio. I'm Paul Harrell. Back in just a moment.
We need to stop importing crime. We've got plenty of problems in Chicago and Detroit. Then why are we welcoming this chaotic group of people?
I completely agree. And, that's the whole point of having a sovereign nation, is being able to decide who gets to come and who doesn't get to come. And so that's a really good points that you're making. The left has been... Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Our baseline, Paul, is that we do not have to allow anyone into our country. And that's what every American citizen has to think about. Our baseline is simply that. We don't have to allow anyone into our country. And it's better, in my opinion, to be able to teach other countries to fish and how to take care, and be able to, for their citizens, to force the kind of government that they're fleeing to, not to bring their problems here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're very generous and we can help them there, and that's what we're doing. That's what President Trump is using this U.S. foreign aid to.
Let's face it, times are tough for the Arkansas General Assembly. They're all waiting for the spotlight exposing public corruption to end, so they won't be under so much scrutiny. And during this time, what if you're a legislator and you need money? What if you're slapped with a huge expense? What if your check for consultant services is late this month? Or maybe you just need extra cash now until payday. When that happens, you can't wait. Hi, I'm Bobby Blackmail for the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank, your trusted source to over 135 lenders to get you short-term cash fast. Use the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank today, and you can have up to $12,500 cash in your checking account tomorrow. Dried-up bribes no longer coming from Medicaid entities? Handled. Extra cash until your hopeful acquittal? Done. And you'll be surprised at how easy it is to get extra cash. Just be an elected official and be comfortable with the status quo, and we'll connect you with a fellow legislator who is ready to loan. It's quick and easy. And don't worry if you can't make the payments, because the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank is designed to help you get through these tough economic times. There are other ways you can pay off your debt, like by voting the way the establishment wants, or by rewarding some with committee chairmanships. So forget about overdraft fees and the spirit of covetousness that sometimes overwhelms the best of lawmakers. Just remember, the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank for short-term cash between colleagues when you need it fast.
Some transactions have long-term consequences.
Paul Harrell, parody.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Yes, welcome back. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for being with us. Some of you are on your first sip of coffee, and I'm well past you. You're going to have to do some major catching up. Hey, so check it out for a second. I was talking with Dr. Michael Packo just a second ago. Really thrilled to have him on and give us some good analysis on our economy and everything else. And I brought up the China thing. And, one of the things I said was, on the tariff situation, is there's a lot of information that we are now learning that's in the news. You kind of got to know where to look for it. But we're understanding now that there's a problem with China, that there has been a trade imbalance with China for decades now. And that's what's lost. I mean, we can easily say that, hey, tariffs are a bad thing, right? Starts a trade war and everything else. But what may be lost on us is China has been placing their tariffs on these on importing goods for a very long time, right? They were already doing this practice. So I think President Trump's goal is no tariffs. But in order to get China to the negotiating table, I think this is very necessary. So China already has in place tariffs on U.S. goods, right? So that's going to complicate your argument as to whether or not tariffs are just a black and white, bad or good, right? If China is already doing it. And then you need to take into consideration, and this is, again, new information that I think talk radio certainly wasn't talking about this, not on the right. What's the cost of doing business in China? If you're going to do business in China, what is the cost, right? So you have forced technology transfers. This is something Vice President Mike Pence talked about in his speech to the Hudson Institute, where if you do the business in China and you go over there, they're going to basically, sometimes guys just come up and they lose a whole factory. They wake up one day and they find out, hey, overnight the Chinese just went in and your factory is no longer owned by you. It's now owned by China. And so if you're going to do business over there, you're going to have to give us the technology in order to do it. Then, of course, I mentioned just a second ago the intellectual property theft that happens. You had a guy down in Stuttgart indicted for stealing rice technology, Chinese national, 2 of them, I think. Not just in Stuttgart, but also I think at a facility, a research facility, either was it in Kansas or was it in Colorado? I can't remember. But you had that recently. That was about 8 weeks ago that happened. Then, okay, on top of that, okay, you have the intellectual property theft, and then you have the counterfeiting of U.S. goods. Somebody was telling me the other day they bought a printer, and it was a knockoff printer, but it was a reputable company that they had this printer. And then when they gave the serial number, something broke on it, right? Obviously, something broke on it. And they're like, oh, sorry, no, that's not ours. That's a fake. That's a Chinese knockoff. And they slapped our logo on it. You bought it. And, it's a complete fake. I probably bought it at the same price. Anyway, the phone number this morning, 870-275-9799. It's very important when we talk about China that we at least acknowledge those are the obstacles. Those are the problems that we're having. And we need to educate our fellow Arkansans about the realities. And I will tell you something right now. There's a lot of farmers out there who are patriots right now. There are farmers out there right now that know that they're having to, suffer a little bit now so that we can attempt to regain our sovereignty in the world marketplace with folks like Canada, Mexico, the European Union, and China. And certainly need to keep that in mind. Hey, folks, Hillary Clinton decided. She woke up yesterday, and Hillary Clinton decided to just give us one more Democrat double standard to work with. A couple of days, a week before the midterm elections. Listen to this.
Or whatever, that's childish.
What do you think of Cory Booker's? And you didn't comment on him, and you feel free.
Oh, I adore him.
What do you think about him saying kick them in the shins, essentially? Start to get to that kind of political.
Well, that was Eric Holder.
Yeah, Eric Holder,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know they all look alike.
No, they don't. Oh, well done.
Yay.
Hillary.
They all look alike. That's right. They all look alike. Every single one of them. Can you imagine if President Trump said this? Can you imagine if any Republican said this? Can you imagine what the fallout would be? I want to remind you about Blexit.com. I want to remind you about this amazing site. Candace Owens from Turning Point USA. The walkaway movement, walking away from the Democrat Party. Folks, there are polls that are showing black, and the Rasmussen poll. I got to pull that up. I don't have it in front of me. I got to pull that up. A Rasmussen poll, and it showed black. The black approval rating for the president is just incredible. I mean, it's almost so high you don't even believe it. I mean, had one poll a month ago showed it, went from 15 to 30% over a year's time. Folks, if 5% of black Americans abandon the Democrat Party, or at least just say, hey, I'm not gonna vote in a monolithic block, then it's over for the Democrats, and they know that right now. But this website, Blexit.com, where they have these truths about the Democrat Party, the history of racism, how it's time to walk away. It's just incredible. For example, Democrat President Woodrow Wilson hailed the rise of the KKK to, quote, protect the Southern country, right? Then you get into the beliefs and statements of Governor Wallace. George Wallace. Democrats once stated, segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. What kind of you got to understand, the Democrat Party had no choice but to try to conceal their past. The Democrat Party had no choice but to hide what they had done. Democrats versus civil rights protests. Eugene Bull Connor, Democrat, unleashed attack dogs and fire hoses on civil rights demonstrators in Alabama. But at some point in the 60s, Democrats and Republicans had an issue-switching summit where they decided, I'll take your positions on the issues and you take mine. And we're just going to take opposite issues, and now Republicans are the racist ones, and Democrats are the progressives that stand up for individual rights and liberties and democracy. I mean, come on, folks. Go to this website. Share it on Facebook. You'll probably get shadow banned if you share it on Twitter. I'm going to be honest with you, but it's Blexit.com, the black exit from the Democrat Party. Check it out. Kanye West is designing T-shirts. I couldn't name you one Kanye West song, but I certainly like his interjection into politics here as of late. I'm not gonna lie. We'll be back in a minute with the Republican candidate for State Representative Joe Cloud. Don't go anywhere.
As a way to try to make those countries be good leaders and, be good parents.
The left has been using this phrase for the last 18 months. And the phrase is this: influence the outcome of an election. I look at these and this is an actual attempt to do that. This 7,000 caravan, that's what it actually looks like. This is an attempt to influence the outcome of an election. But don't expect any analysis like that from the mainstream media. They're going to sit on their moral high horse, and they're going to claim that Donald Trump is heartless and is a totalitarian for securing the border, because he's at the point now, unless these people are stopped, he's not going to back down. I mean, he's shown that multiple times. I saw somebody, even suggest that, hey, maybe you shut down, not only use the military to secure the border, but you also just shut down the legal crossing. Just absolutely shut it down. Say nobody in, nobody out for a period of time, which we did do in 1985 after one of our federal agents was killed at the border.
Right, exactly. We have to do this. I'm from Texas originally. We're here in Washington, D.C. now. It's very important that we are here looking over the shoulder of these politicians, and I can tell you that the people will save this country, because we're going to band together and do what's right. Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and that's why the walk-away movement has picked up and taken hold here across the country, because they're seeing that this is not about politics or parties. This is about the survival of America. And if you take a look at what's going on in the streets, Paul, with the Antifa and how they can attack, there's a video out there that went viral where a young man verbally attacked the widow of a fallen police officer during the 9/11 terrorist attacks. This is unacceptable behavior, and if you're wearing a MAGA hat supporting President Trump, then you can be, assaulted. This is just outrageous, this type of behavior, and know that these people do get paid. And we've known this for several years. The Remembrance Project started in 2009, and our eyes were just, eyes wide open when you pull that curtain back and you're seeing more and more on what's really taking place. How can you stop? Because no one else is doing this, and no one else sees some of the things that we do. Hearing some of the families, a mother who was denied to give her victim impact statement when her only son was murdered. And these are activist judges that President Trump actually created the Office of Voice last year, Victims of Immigration Crime Engagement.
All right, folks, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. Let's kind of give a little spotlight. We're going to zoom in here on a state representative, State House District 71. We have the Republican candidate running for that office, Dr. Joe Cloud, is on the line. Dr. Cloud, welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you for allowing me to be on your show.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let's just talk real quick. Why'd you decide to run?
Well, Paul, that's a great question and one I've been asked many, many times. I started this process about 14 months ago, actually, approached by some of the Republican leaders looking for maybe a little bit different direction in our representation, and it kind of went from there. And after much prayerful consideration and visiting with my wife and family members, I decided to get on board and throw my hat in the ring.
That's good. That's good. So when you knock the doors and you're going around asking for people's votes, first, are people receptive to the Republican message?
Yes, I believe they are very receptive. And, you know, like anything else, there's 2 points of view or more, and but people are open to a dialogue and a discussion for the most part. I have run into some, I would use the term radical on both sides, left and right, that are not really interested in much dialogue. But by far the majority, yes, sir, are interested in a healthy discussion.
So what about this casino issue? First of all, tell us District 71. What counties are we talking about?
Pope County, Paul.
Okay. So you guys are ground zero. You're in Pope County. That's your district. So what do you think about this casino measure? I mean, the rest of the state is going to vote to whether or not to put a casino in your county.
That's exactly correct, and that's one of the greatest concerns that Pope Countyans have is, we're losing local control in a sense if this issue 4 passes, Paul, and that's a great concern for our citizens. We don't want 74 other counties to tell one county, in particular Pope County, what she has to do on this issue. Mm-hmm. So we do have a referendum on our ballot that will prohibit, if it stands up legal challenges, of course, and if it passes, it will prohibit our county judge, it will prohibit our quorum court, it will prohibit any of our leaders to say independently, yes, we want to go ahead and have this casino. So hopefully, if that referendum passes, whether or not issue 4 passes, at least Pope County will be able to have a voice and a say in what goes on here.
Okay. So you're saying after this, okay, if it passes, and I just kind of think it will. I really do. But maybe not. But you're saying if it does pass, there is some mechanism that the Pope County, the residents there, the people there, or their representatives can say, no, we'll pass.
Correct, if it passes. In other words, we're voting on that as we go in to vote on the other issues. Then we are also voting on our local referendum.
Okay.
So that we would be able to have a popular vote.
I got it. Okay, so there's okay, I'm clear now. So there's 2 different things. There's the actual issue, and then you guys got a referendum to try to stop it if it does pass, and that's a really, really smart move, by the people of Pope County. Yeah, I mean, I just think, look, we just talked to economist Dr. Michael Packo, and he was talking about, Arkansas, still a low-income state. We still have really a lot of work to do. We heard that also from your hopefully future colleague, State Representative Pilkington. And I think at this point, if you were to just add casinos to this state, I mean, not 1, but 4 full-fledged casinos, I just don't think that would be very good in helping economic disadvantaged people climbing up the ladder when you have, a lot of this gambling. It'd be so close.
Well, I totally agree with you, Paul. And obviously, this is a tremendously divisive issue, and facts coming out from both sides. And the thing about it is, if you really look at those facts and you really examine those facts, as the term has been coined, the fake news, there's a lot of non-factual, quote, facts, unquote, that are coming out. And so people really need to be smart, and they really need to study this issue before they go vote, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this, Dr. Cloud, as a medical doctor, how do you see healthcare? How's healthcare changed since you've been practicing? Is it is it to the betterment of patients? Have things gotten worse? Is there too much government involved in healthcare? What's your philosophy there?
That's a great question, Paul. Is there too much government in healthcare? Is there too much government in anything? My answer resoundingly would be yes. The local or recent Democratic platform basically touts universal health care, as opposed to the Republican platform, which states that we should be individually responsible. So there's just a basic difference right there. To more directly answer your question, practicing as a physician for 32 years, I did see a lot of changes in our healthcare system. And in my very humble opinion, what happened initially, and I'm just talking on a real broad plane here, is that the insurance companies were able to wiggle in between the healthcare practitioner and the patient, so that created a divide. And then with the government interventions as far as Medicare, Medicaid, and their rules and regulations, that furthered the divide. And then with the Affordable Care Act, which was passed, that even widened the gap. So it's when a patient comes into the office now, there are rules and regulations that the practitioner has to follow if they expect to get any sort of reimbursement that actually, Paul, have nothing to do with why that patient comes into your office. And for me, that was so tremendously frustrating because I wanted to be there for that patient, in my case, her particular needs, wants, desires, concerns, but I had to address all these other things and type it in on the computer and make sure that she was, quote, registered, unquote, with all of these factors that had nothing to do with why she actually presented to my office, and that was extremely frustrating.
So what do you think the solution is to try to stop that? I mean, is there anything we can do on a state level? Honestly, I made a joke the other day. Somebody said, well, the casino measure's on the ballot. I said, don't we already have casinos? Aren't they big insurance companies? I mean, you know, the people have to have it, right? People go in, have to have it, but I think they end up losing in the end, you know?
Yes. Well, and there's different issues and a whole other discussion concerning some tort reform. Of course, the Supreme Court struck this issue one, so our votes don't count on that. But I think some form of responsible tort reform like the surrounding states have, I think that would help. That increases the cost of health care the way it is in Arkansas, if you just talk about a state level. But I'm afraid the whole discussion of health care is going to have to come from a national level because that's where we've gotten to.
I really appreciate you coming on, Dr. Joe Cloud. You're a Republican candidate for State Rep District 71. What else? Real quick, last question. Any other issues? I know the casinos, you know, at the forefront. Any other issues on the minds of your potential constituents out there when you go and you talk to them?
Yes, sir. I've been out at the election headquarters almost every day since early voting started. And we've had record turnout, Paul, which I would commend the people. You know, please go vote. Our last election we had locally, 18.5% of the registered voters voted. Please just go out and vote. Of course, the casino issue 4 is driving a lot of that vote, I believe. We have a hotly contested mayoral race with 3 candidates, and I think that's driving a lot of the voters to come out. We have had on our books for quite some time a convention center. We've spent $5 million to purchase land, and we've got about $2.4 million in the bank. and it's just been sitting around. So that's a local issue, I think, again, that are driving local voters. We have, like other cities and other areas, we have some infrastructure issues and drainage issues. And again, those have kind of been kicked down the road. And I think those are also driving our voter turnout locally.
Well, Dr. Joe Cloud, I wish you the best of luck, sir. Hopefully you'll be celebrating on November 6th, the night of. And, I know you want to represent the folks of Pope County well in District 71. So I hope you have a great day, sir.
Well, thank you, Paul. Regna populus, the people rule. So if I am a representative, that's what I want to do, is to represent the people.
Dr. Joe Cloud, it's great to meet you, sir. Thanks for coming on, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, folks, we're going to reset here. Going to come back, get you some more news, and we'll be back in a moment.
If you believe the Second Amendment protects your right to defend your home with a firearm, where do you turn if the government confiscates your gun? To the courthouse. The Founding Fathers created your Seventh Amendment right to a civil jury to protect your freedoms. The courthouse is where you fight the overreaching hand of government. And the Brad Hendricks Law Firm is where the fight starts. Call the Brad Hendricks Law Firm at 501-221-0444. The Brad Hendricks Law Firm in Little Rock, standing ready using the Seventh Amendment to protect your Second Amendment rights.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
The promise to the Remembrance Project, and one of the key elements was to help navigate through the court system, which is why we wanted to, which is the reason we wanted that was to expose these activist judges. And you can see that Obama pushed through this so-called executive order of DACA, and now why can't President Trump remove that? He can't. He should be able to rescind it, but guess what? It's stuck there. Stalled in the Ninth Circuit Court.
Yeah. Wow.
Exactly. So Americans, please stand up, call President Trump. Number one, ask him for the National Day of Remembrance. We want a proclamation from the president. I'll give the number. It's 202-456-1111. And please let him know to place those troops at the border and protect American lives.
Maria Espinoza, the website, theremembranceproject.org. Maria, it's always great to have you on. Thank you for your thoughts, and hopefully, this care.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
I've been holding out on you. Welcome. Sorry. Welcome back to the program. I was talking to Joe there. Some behind the microphone humor, or off-air humor, I guess you could say. Folks, this headline is. I have a. I don't know. Some folks need to be aware of something that's gone on over here the last 2 years across the state of Arkansas. And I don't even know what we'd call this. Maybe a caution. I guess I have a caution. I would like to communicate to you guys, and it has to do with medical marijuana, whether you love it or you hate it, whether you don't care. The fact of the matter is, 2 years ago, people voted for medical marijuana in the state, and they still can't get any. That's my caution to all of you guys out there. The people are only going to be pushed so far. And there's a ton of people who voted for medical marijuana because they want to smoke it and get high recreationally. That's just a fact. There's also people that voted for it because they need it for pain management, and they desperately don't want to take all these pharmaceuticals. They'd rather either smoke weed, or they'd rather get some sort of derivative oil, or I don't even know. Like, I think there's some stuff that doesn't have THC in it that's really good for pain, and I don't know. To each his own, okay? It's a plant. I feel like I wish the vote was, hey, instead of setting up all the bureaucracy and all the dispensaries and all the corruption and all the alleged bribes, and then you have growers and then you have dispensaries and it's just a big mess. I wish the vote would have been, hey, do you think it should be legal to grow a plant in the ground and do what you want to with it? That wasn't what we voted on, though. But the people wanted anything the government would give them in terms of, hey, we'll take what we can get. There are kids that have epilepsy. This supposedly helps with seizures. Point being, the people of Arkansas voted for medical marijuana, and they still can't get it, and it's been 2 years. Now, it certainly is an exercise that confirms my worldview that the government can't do the things it claims to do. The government is like that I don't know. You ever meet somebody? You ever have somebody growing up and that is just really, really overconfident in what they do, and they never really ever deliver on what they say they can do? You have that person that just exaggerates, and I guess every kid is like this at some point. Especially if you're a guy and you play sports, and it's like, oh, yeah, I can sink 10 three-pointers in a row right here, no problem. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I can do it. Yeah. And, of course, you don't make any. You never even get to test it because you can't even make one to even get to see if you can make two in a row. That's what the government is. The government is like a cocky, prepubescent boy that thinks they can literally be a superhero, thinks they can do all of this stuff, claims that they'll do it, but they can never follow through. And that's exactly what the government is. The government, in essence, when it's trying to expand its responsibility and ask for your freedoms in exchange, they never can deliver. They never deliver. And at the same time, they're trying to expand what they're, to these new responsibilities, whether it's health care or whether it's Medicare for all or whether it's a new welfare program. The government should provide you phones. FDR wanted the government to provide you vacation time, all this stuff. At the same time, we have porous borders, and the government is abdicating the very responsibility of doing a basic thing and trying to control and at least measure who comes and who goes into our country. We have 7,000 people still marching to the border. We have the U.S. military that's now being called, 5,000 troops down to the border. Active duty U.S. military going to the border. Anyway, the point being, it's a caution. Whether you love medical marijuana, hate it, don't care, indifferent, there is something really, really wrong with the fact that people voted for it and they still don't have it. Now, at the same time, I realize what they voted for, and I know what some of you would say to me. You would say, Paul, they thought they were getting medical marijuana. They didn't actually vote to legalize medical marijuana in the way that they thought they were. If they had read the amendment, what they actually voted for was to start a process by which the government of Arkansas regulates medical marijuana. And that is exactly right. But there's a lot of Arkansans that don't know that, number one. And number two, if you told it to them, they don't care. It's a word of caution to any elected official out there. I don't care what party you're in. I got a feeling medical marijuana is a very bipartisan issue. So you better figure out whatever's going on and you better fix it. I think it's in your best interest, because I think eventually there could be politicians that get thrown out of office, probably even Democrat ones. I mean, if there's Democrats out there that want to primary other Democrats, this is your ticket, by the way. This is your ticket. Just FYI. Folks, Kanye West has designed T-shirts urging black people to leave the Democrat Party. This from thehill.com. Kanye West has reportedly designed T-shirts urging black people to leave the Democrat Party. The T-shirts first appeared at Turning Point USA's Young Black Leadership Summit Saturday in Washington. According to the New York Post's page, they advocate for a black exit or Blexit from the Democrat Party. Also, the narrative continues to try to get President Trump to essentially try to convince the American people that President Trump is responsible for every bad thing that's ever happened in this country, but specifically the anti-Semitic murderer who killed 11 people over the weekend. We played this clip for you last hour. Joe, will you pull this back up? This, because I think there are two videos on that Daily Caller article where CNN is trying to get the rabbi of what's the name of the well, I missed it right now. Try to get the rabbi of the Tree of Life, Tree of Life Synagogue, trying to get the rabbi to condemn President Trump. And Allison Camerot is trying to do it. There are two videos, right, on that. So, yeah, so play the one that we didn't hear last hour. Go ahead.
That's a beautiful message, Rabbi. President Trump has talked about coming to Pittsburgh and coming to your synagogue in the aftermath of this. Do you want him to come?
The President of the United States is always welcome. I'm a citizen. He's my president. He's certainly welcome.
The ADL tells us that
I mean, that was just that's the little piece that we didn't hear. If you go back and listen to the full piece, I mean, it was pain. It was so painful to listen to. See, and they're trying to get this rabbi to politicize this. They're trying to get this rabbi to condemn President Trump. They want you to believe. They are so afraid of the freedom of speech that they just want you to think. They want to reinforce this idea that if you say something and somebody does something as a result, that you shouldn't be allowed to say what you want to say anymore. That you have that President Trump's speech, his words, his rallies inspired this guy to go into a synagogue and kill 11 people, and it's just preposterous. It's ridiculous. Do you realize the Einsteins and geniuses at CNN, they had a commentator on, Jake Tapper, of all people, was moderating a panel, and they had this lady on there. This can you say lady in the tone that I just said lady? Is that chauvinistic? They had this lady on there who said that Donald Trump has radicalized more people than ISIS. And the guy pushed back and said, "You've got to be kidding me." And Jake Tapper didn't say anything. And then on Twitter he said, "Well, it was a panel discussion. It wasn't an interview." I mean, and since this lady has come out and said, "Well, I was emotional. I was emotional, and I'm just really upset. I apologize. I exaggerated." Yeah, really? You think Donald Trump has radicalized more people than ISIS? Okay, yeah. I mean, how offensive. You can't say something like that. You see, these people, projection and deflection, I mean, they project the very thing that they're guilty on to deflect, or they're guilty of to deflect, blame and everything else. I mean, tell that to tell ISIS, tell that to to Paris or to France with all of their attacks that they've had. Tell that across the world, how many ISIS attacks have gone on, how many people are dead because of ISIS and how they've radicalized people from inside. Tell that to the San Bernardino bombers, or not bombers, but the shooters that went into that guy's workplace, right? I mean, and of course it gets no attention. If you remember, the neighbors thought that they were radical Islamic terrorists, but they didn't want to get branded as a bigot, so they did not report. Because, again, the left at this point has set up these rules for living your life with a dogmatic religious fervor, and you cannot violate or you will be ostracized, you will be shunned. The stakes are high. The whiteboard says, if you can keep it. That's what we're trying to keep. We're trying to keep our republic. And the midterm elections are 7 days away. Folks, you got to go out and vote. You got to call people to go vote. And you got to stay vigilant. Have to stay vigilant. If you think the left is bad now, if the Republicans win, it may get worse. But if the left wins, they will be emboldened, and it still might get even worse. The question is, do you believe Hillary Clinton? We'll be civil once we get our power back. Yeah, right. We'll see you tomorrow.
The news and talk